Hey there, gamers. DreamcastGuy here. Today we're talking about the Resident Evil remakes because there have been a lot of very interesting leaks about the Code Veronica remake, which apparently is coming up very soon, and also a complete reinvention of Resident Evil 0. But this weekend especially, last night, the king of Resident Evil leaks, a guy with a very concrete track record, Dusk Golem, did a posting spree where he basically did the most in-depth leaks I've ever seen in my life, including gameplay changes, world changes, storyline changes, timeline changes. A lot of stuff that makes me think that Code Veronica Remake and Resident Evil 0 Remake, these are going to be the biggest, craziest, most unique remakes we've seen yet, which is pretty substantial after how much they completely reinvented what Resident Evil 4 was in the remake. But I want to break down all the leaks and sort of just talk about it from a fan perspective, because I know they love the new Resident Evil. I love 7, I love Village, I love what 9 is slowly turning into, but I very much appreciate the OGs, the clunky tank control perfection. In fact, even this weekend I've been playing a lot of the original Resident Evil 2 on my PS5, but let's talk about these leaks, because Code Veronica to me has always been maybe the biggest leap in quality that Resident Evil ever had, and this shift sounds fantastic. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I've been practicing editing the audio to sound a bit better, like I figured out how to record all this stuff a bit better, so if this sounds extra good, well, give me a like, because it took a lot of hours of practice. But here we go. So there is a bunch of tweets we're going to go through here that are all multi-chains, because Dusk Golem has been getting a lot of questions ever since he initially said anything about the Code Veronica remake. I feel like people outside the fan base do not realize how important Code Veronica is to the fans, because yeah, some people kind of love it, some people kind of hate it, because it does have some of the most backtracking of all the early games, but I think a lot of people like it because it's that weird crossover where up until Resident Evil 4, obviously back then the games were still more focused on horror, scariness, limited ammunition, crazy bosses, impossible monsters, whereas with Resident Evil 4, they became more funny, more crazy, more backflips and grapple hooks and El Gigante. Like, the later games are still scary, but this to me, I'm glad it sounds like the remake of Code Veronica is sticking to that original dark and decay. From what I hear, Resident Evil Remake is going super well, like Resident Evil 4 levels of good, which is funny because a lot of the same people. This legitimately, when I read this, hit me like a lightning bolt. I played the Resident Evil 4 Remake legitimately 20 times. I played it on every platform. I got the Platinum Trophy. I beat it on every difficulty, every mode, every piece of DLC. It is a masterpiece of horror, of gameplay. It is fantastic. The fact that those people are working on this, I truly cannot express how hyped I am. Going so well that it's actually ahead of their internal schedule, and they're very confident in what they're making. For those that didn't know, RE4 Remake actually changed hands in 2020 from M2 to the lead dev of Capcom Division 1. The change would have delayed the game, but the team effing nailed it. They didn't need to delay the original play, and despite the reboot and dev, just blasted through to make the areas good on the first version. Wow, that's so crazy. Resident Evil games usually take a while because there will be multiple versions of areas and segments to try and determine if it's good, needs to be redone, scrapped, how it works, how it fits. Sometimes whole projects reboot. Code Veronica is apparently doing great. Now, this is something that we've sort of halfway known about, which is that it's not even that they're perfectionists in the typical sense. It's not like they're meticulously trying to refine things down to the most, shrill, nasty, awesome, goopy monsters and stuff. It's more about the fact that they feel like there is a correct vibe they're trying to hit, and they don't mind reforming a game. Like, obviously, Resident Evil 4 was originally a very different game. If you've ever seen the Hookman stuff, the original version of Resident Evil 4 that was coming out on GameCube was a completely different game before it became the version we have now, right? But the leaks go on. Now, this 5-tweet thread it actually gets me so excited and so curious about how much this will even feel like the old school Code Veronica. For anybody who played the Resident Evil 4 remake directly after playing the original Resident Evil 4, the tone was very different. It still managed to be Resident Evil 4 on like GameCube, Resident Evil 4 on like GameCube and PS2. It was almost kind of goofy at times. It was so action focused, people jumping jet skis over exploding buildings and stuff. It was still Resident Evil, of course, but it was very different from the other games. Whereas with the remake, they went back to it being extra scary, dark, thunderstorms, extra monsters, side quests that actually showed more about the people that slowly lost their minds to the Las Plagas virus. It sounds like they're trying to do that level of reinvention with the Code Veronica remake, surprisingly. I'm going to answer 4 questions about Code Veronica Remake, then no more until after RE9. Resident Evil Requiem is at what's next. It's what I'm looking forward to right now. That's where my focus with leaks will be. So ignore any Code Veronica questions until Resident Evil 9 is out. First up, Code Veronica Remake, not only for what I've heard, is ahead of its internal schedule. Meanwhile, Resident Evil 0 Remake got delayed recently after some form of dev reboot last year. With that in mind, I think it's far more likely that Code Veronica is first, even though originally it was the other way around. Now, this to me, I guess it makes sense because Resident Evil 0 was always a tinier game. It's a tighter story, it's more focused, most of it takes place on a train and stuff like that. But also, Code Veronica, I feel like, needs more big sweeping changes to sort of fit the current day tone. Like, Code Veronica has a lot of jokes that aren't just cringe. The whole thing has a very oh God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. At times, the game is a bit of a Backstreet Boys vibe and stuff. It feels like it's trying to appeal to like a very strange audience that I just do not think exists, especially with a character like Steve Burnside looking like Leonardo DiCaprio. I feel like they're really going to do a different vibe with Resident Evil Code Veronica because they have this extra dev time, this extra development, and honestly, way more budget than they originally did. A lot of the original Resident Evils, if you ever read any of the books about it, like Itchy Tasty, great book about how they made the Resident Evil games, they were all very much built with their heads on fire. It was constantly just next game, next game, next game. I mean, people forget the fact that we got Resident Evil 1, then the director's cut, 2, then the DualShock version, then 3, then Code Veronica, then we get Resident Evil 1 Remake, then we get Resident Evil 4, then we get 0. Like, it was so incredibly back to back to back to back. Now we are in an era where they can take their time, where they can refine it, where they can figure stuff out. So it does make me think that, honestly, the fact that they're rebooting 0, I do think Resident Evil 0 is going to be substantially different. The original Resident Evil 0 always felt like it was trying to be co-op. In the game, it had this thing where you'd pass items back and forth, where there's 2 characters and you're playing both characters, but they're never together. Instead, you're constantly having to hand stuff through a little tiny butler elevator. Here's a crank to solve this puzzle. Now hand me back the key or a gun. I like Resident Evil 0. I'm definitely a big defender of Resident Evil 0, but I feel like they're going to have to do bigger stuff, and I bet those internal tests showed some stuff can be interesting, but it isn't fun, right? Okay, but let me keep going here. Oh my God, so we have the weird Redfield from Resident Evil 7, Leon, so cool, so cool. Steve will still have a crush on Claire, but it'll be played more innocently. His perverseness is toned down. In its place, it'll be a more abrasive, overtly cautious, and not understanding of personal boundaries. Interesting. So this is the thing I definitely felt like they would have to change the most. Is just in general, there were a lot of characters that I feel like are just not, like, they just don't fit how we write people now. And Steve is definitely one of those people. Steve has this whiny voice. He meets up with Claire. Claire in Resident Evil Code Veronica, if you ever played it, they end up on this prison island together. Umbrella, of course, they're such a billion-dollar corporation. They've got prisons for some reason. I'm sure Amazon probably has prisons somewhere as well, right? Basically, though, when she goes there, she finds this kid, basically, whose whole family has been killed. He's stuck on the island by himself. And he's like, "Don't trust others, Claire. They'll only let you down." That's how he says the word down. Down. So I understand the fact that, yeah, you don't want to make a character like that that's annoying and cringe and trying to see her titties that bad. Making it more of a abrasiveness, I think that's a good change. Well, let me keep going there here. Wesker will play a much bigger part because the HCF has been upgraded to the main plot point in Code Veronica Remake. We're going to get their full scoop, more scenes with Wesker and the HCF, which is like a secret organization he's working with. They play a bigger role in the story. Like many people have predicted, hold on, let me read this. Will Wesker play a larger part in the reimagining? I admit that Wesker does perform better in the background, but at this point in the story, he's more like an employee. Also, how's Claire's design coming along? So making Wesker bigger retroactively is such an odd choice. A lot of people think that in a way, Capcom regrets killing Wesker off because not only was Wesker an incredibly popular character, not only is his death kind of silly since you throw him into a volcano and shoot him with a helicopter, but I think a lot of times they realize, oh man, it sucks that we permanently destroyed every cell of this guy and we can't bring him back for any storyline ever. So I think in a way they're sort of trying to expand on him in a way where, all right, now we're in a part of timeline where he is alive. We're allowed to do this, right? Let me keep going here. Is there any innovations on the gameplay or using the famous lighter in Resident Evil Code Veronica? Like many predict, Wesker's boss fight with Chris is now a boss fight. He no longer fights Alexa. Interesting. So they're removing the last boss between Chris and Alexa, who's like a cybernetic monster. I'm not going to show you a picture of her, but there is a very crazy last boss that you basically just shoot her with a rocket launcher, right? Having him fight Wesker instead of just it being a cutscene like it was in the original game, that's a very, very big change. I think it makes more sense, honestly, but it's a very big change. Now, here's the last thing. This is very crazy. Rockfort Island is now semi-open world, and Claire has a motorcycle she repairs early, and the player uses it to traverse it. So this sounds open world as heck. And that's wild to me in that Resident Evil 4 Remake was already a very, very big game. In fact, I'm shocked by how big Resident Evil 4 Remake is. The fact that it has so many zones, so much optional backtracking to find, optional side objectives, and crazy hidden stuff, and cool extra puzzles. Resident Evil 4 Remake is big. And a lot of times there has been talks about the fact that Capcom liked those larger zones because it enabled them to just put more stuff in the world. They could hide extra cool stuff. And basically, all right, we have all these plans. Let's just put all of it in there, right? Just throw it all at the wall. The fact that they're doing that with the Code Veronica Remake, but even more so, driving around on the island, it's so big, is insane. I'll be honest, I love Resident Evil 2 the most. Resident Evil 2 and 3, still my favorite, just because I love Raccoon City a lot. I almost kind of want to see more games in Raccoon City. There have been some leaks by Dusk Golem that apparently they're not fully done with certain eras. If at any point now, Capcom is more not as focused on a singular timeline. It's not just next game. They basically said, all right, if we want to do a game set before Raccoon City or in the Spencer Mansion or whatever, we don't care now. If it's fun, if it fits the story, we're fine with it. We'll do whatever we want. I kind of want to see a fully open world Fall of Raccoon City game at some point, right? Where we actually get to like be the police force and go around and actually see the downfall as it's happening. Like, man, that would be crazy. I sincerely hope they make a worthy remake of Resident Evil Code Veronica. I really wish they'd explore the Ashfords more. For what it's worth, what I've heard a few times now, actually, Code Veronica Remake not only is being handled by a lot of the same people as RE2 and RE4, but it's being treated as a big budget mainline Resident Evil in every single way. Oh, man. Now, here's the last tweet, and I feel like I'm 50-50 on this. The info is that there's no Resident Evil 5 remake in development right now. I personally think if a fan demand continues to be high and all things align, it's definitely possible it could happen in the future, but at this moment, the only things being remade is Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0. Now, this is the thing, is that I feel like as much as I like Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 5 would have to be completely reinvented. Dusk Golem has been doing these leaks that essentially, in a lot of ways, Capcom is basically trying to find a way to make more stuff that is out of typical order. more spin-offs, more weirdness, more like sort of standalone DLC stuff. And in a way, as much as I love Resident Evil 5, it is the game I feel like that's more and more fitting the timeline the least. It is too silly. It is too out there. It's too co-op, I think, in some ways, right? If we get a Resident Evil 5 remake, I don't think it's going to even be called Resident Evil 5. I may think they may just end up call it like the final mission of Chris or something super dramatic, right? Something to just basically still make it Resident Evil 5, but you can remake every part of it and it still fits the world. How do you feel about this? Are you excited for Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake? It was funny because I actually saw this originally on Reddit and people were freaking the heck out. Code Veronica and Remake, Code Veronica and Zero needs a remake more. I personally would love a Resident Evil 1 remake. Selfishly, it's my favorite game of horror of all time. Honestly, yeah, I'm super excited. Horror fans, we're eating good. We also have as crazy as Silent Hill F coming out very, very soon. I'm pleased as punch. If you're into old school horror, new horror, it's a great time to be a fan. But man, Resident Evil, as a person that grew up with it, I'll never quite grasp how crazy it is to just see a series somehow get better and better and better when everybody else continues to get much, much worse. But these have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. Love you very much. Hope you're having a great day. And if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. All right, now I'm allowed to have a nice, delicious monster now that I've talked into a microphone dramatically here for 17 minutes.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.